right? Dream big, but build bigger. And while we're on the vein of dreaming big and building bigger, it's time for our next segment. Our good friend from AWS is here. We're gonna learn a little bit more about them. So gonna bring Denise to the studio, to the stage, and we're gonna get right into it. So Denise, let's talk AWS, how you all are supporting founders. But first, I want to hear, or we would love to hear a little bit more about you and your origin story. How did you get to AWS?
Yeah. Hi. Good morning. Thanks for having me, Joey. Good to see you. Gosh, we've been connected for years, so it's nice to have a conversation with you today. So I am at AWS. I lead our global programs for startups, and been at AWS now for almost 5 years. So few months shy of 5 years, and my role, as long as with everyone else on my team, is to build programs that help entrepreneurs dream, build, grow, and launch their businesses. And so we have a number of programs. Happy to chat with you about those programs at AWS. And yeah, we're excited to be here to chat today a little bit more about that.
Well, let's get right into it. I mean, let's talk about some of the programs that you all have support founders. I think earlier this year, you all, I don't want to jump the gun because I don't know everything you all do. I mean, I'm sure everyone wants to know as well, but then you all had programs to support Black founders, but not sure. I mean, I know there's other programs that you all have done or are planning to do, but what are some of the ways in which you all support founders?
Yeah, so one of our keystone programs is AWS Activate. So AWS Activate, to a lot of people, they think of it as more of like a credit program. But what AWS Activate does is it provides resources, mentorship, guidance, access to our startup lofts, which are co-working spaces for startups. It gives them a lot of access that they can just kind of grow and launch their business. Startups can join it. They can get credits as small as 1,000 AWS credits up to 100,000 AWS credits. We support startups, and we contribute to $1 billion a year in our Activate program. And so startups that join Activate, which it's free to join, can get up to $1 million in credits and resources. And services. So it's a huge commitment that we make on an annual year. And so it's $1 billion, and we invest into startups every single year in the Activate program. And part of my role is to build some of those programs that kind of support AWS Activate. So our startup lofts, we have physical spaces across the globe. In the US, we have one in New York and one in San Francisco. And so those spaces, startups can just walk in. There's free co-working, there's free coffee, free Wi-Fi. We do a ton of events in those spaces as well too. So startups have access to the AWS lofts through the Activate program as well. And then, as you mentioned earlier this year, super proud of the AWS Impact Accelerator program. So we launched that earlier this year. We run 2 cohorts for Black founders, and then a cohort for women founders, which we're just at the tail end of the culmination of that. So happy to talk about that. But the unique thing about that particular program is we actually put cash in hand in underrepresented founders. So startups that are accepted into the Impact Accelerator receive $125,000 cash, zero equity. We take no part of their business. And then they also receive 100,000 in AWS service credits as well too. So, and a ton of other benefits. Happy to talk more about them, but we're super, super proud about the AWS Impact Accelerator, supporting startups that are often overlooked and often counted out. So it's one that we're super, super excited about.
Nice. Okay, so before we go into that, I want to learn more about the Impact Accelerator, but I want to go back to the startup lawsuit because that's like super cool, right? So you said New York, and is LA or San Francisco?
San Francisco.
Okay. And so how can people get a part of that, the Activate and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm happy to drop a link into the chat, but if they Google AWS Activate, it'll come up, and they can click on it. There's an application where they apply, and as long as they are an actual startup and they're a business, they will get accepted into the program. So it doesn't cost them to apply for anything. And then once they get accepted into the program, they get access to all of these additional benefits. We also partner with a number of businesses like Brex and Carta, DocSend, and so they get access to a lot of those through our exclusive offer program, so discounts and perks through our partners as well.
Dope. Good stuff. Okay. So let's go into the Impact Accelerator. Before we do that, again, if you have any questions or anything like that for Denise, you can feel free to drop them in whatever platform you're on. We're more than likely be able to, kind of get to them, especially if you're watching over on YouTube. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Impact Accelerator. I mean, dig a little bit deeper into that. Any favorite moments, success stories, anything like that.
Yeah, so we started out earlier this year supporting 25 Black founders. And from those founders that we accepted into the program, a number of them received follow-on credit. One of our startups received well over $1 million in the seed round. We've also had a number of them get accepted into a number of accelerator programs, so like Techstars. Some of them have had interviews with YC, so we'll see here shortly if they were accepted. And then they've also been able to really kind of dig into the technical aspects of their business. So AWS, we're really known for our technology. And so a lot of those founders were struggling a lot with some of the tooling related to AI, ML, those types of things. And so we were able to really kind of help them really kind of boost up their MVP. And then some of the startups are ready to launch as well and help them increase their customer go-to-market strategies and flow. So a number of them have received a ton of additional customers, press mentions, et cetera. So we're super, super excited about the wins that we're seeing with Black founders. With women founders, same thing. We accepted 25, strong women-led tech startups. And, what's interesting, in doing this program, we're starting to see the industries that underrepresented founders are building in mostly. And so we're seeing a lot of fintech, a lot of health tech. We're also seeing a ton of Web3 and blockchain, which, is really interesting to see. And so getting a lot of that data has been able to really kind of help us continue to build more programs. And so we're excited for January when we launch our Latino Impact Accelerator. And so we'll continue doing this with a number of different underrepresented groups. But yeah, I'm happy to kind of talk a little bit about maybe even some of the startups that were accepted into the program and what they're building. But a really, really great, diverse group of 50 startups this year so far.
Nice. I'd love to hear some of those, and I'm sure the audience would as well. Hear a little bit some of the very specific startups. But you may have said it before. I apologize. From generally speaking, what type of companies are you looking for? I mean, they're early, right? But any other kind of, I just want to make sure that people when we ask them to apply soon, they have a good sense of things.
Yeah, so we're looking for startups that are ready to scale. So they should already have an MVP. They should be ready to take that MVP and be ready to launch. They have some sort of customer data already, right? They've been able to kind of prove their hypothesis on base of what they're building, and they are ready to kind of technically kind of move to the next level. They should have a CTO in place or someone that is a lead engineer, because part of the program, we pair them with a startup solution architect. And so they have meetings on a weekly basis. And so they should have someone that's leading their engineering or head developer or CTO that's part of it. And then we're also looking for startups that have not already gone through a really large accelerator program, right? We're looking for those that have been missed, essentially. And so we're looking for startups that have a really unique story. We're agnostic on cloud, we're agnostic on industry, but really it's about the story and what they're trying to build are the startups that we're looking for. So main criteria really is you have to have an MVP, you have to have a CTO or some sort of head engineer in place. And then we're looking for startups that are ready to scale. So you have to have something that's ready to be introduced to millions of customers and partners through our networks.
Nice. So, I mean, any we'll start with the women, the members of the current women cohort. Any ones that are really kind of stick out to you? Not to say you're calling them a favorite, because I'm sure you love all of them, right? You love all 25,
I,
but
I, I
any of
love
them
all
kind of stick out.
25.
Any stick out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. So we have a startup called Totem, and I think what they're doing is something really interesting that we don't often see. Is they are a financial services startup for Native Americans.
Hmm.
And so what they're doing is they are actually going on reservation and working with leaders and working with their members to get their benefits that they receive onto an app, right? So
Hmm.
moving them from legacy systems into something that's a little bit more technology focused. And so the CEO is Amber, and I think she's done a phenomenal job. The way she describes it is, you know, for natives by natives.
Hmm.
And so, we don't often hear those stories. So I'm really super excited about what they're building. I would also say another startup that's also really super interesting is Recess. We often hear about the financial services and health tech types of startups, but Recess, led by a woman named B, who's actually building more of an entertainment app, right? And so when you think about when you were in school and it was recess time, you got to kind of get that break in the middle of the day and go outside and play. I mean, her app is very similar to that, right? And so you're in a professional services, and sometimes we just need a mental break in the middle of the day, and want to connect with our friends, especially now that everyone that is working from home and you're unable sometimes to kind of see your friends. And so Recess gives you the opportunity to kind of play virtual games with your friends in the middle of the day, right? It's a break period that's time bound. So I think it's just super interesting and different, right? But there's so many, right? There's a lot of them. We have some startups that are focusing on ed tech. And so there's a startup called T-Read, who is really focusing on education and students being able to kind of read, especially in underserved communities. We have startups that are focusing on mentorship and future of work.
Hmm.
So there's a whole host of them. But yes, some really strong women-led startups that are selected. And I'm happy to drop in the link in the chat to our announcement. And anyone that's interested should go take a look at those 25 startups.
Yeah, please do. Please do. Let's move on to the Black founder cohort. Any again, all of them. We I know you love them all equally, but any of them doing anything maybe some like unique or different or something like that?
Yeah, I would say one that's really super unique is a startup called Church Space.
Sure.
And so Church Space is the way that they describe it, the Airbnb for churches. And so they are working with church owners in their underutilized space. And so think of it as if you're planning an event or if you're leading a charity and you need a space to utilize to run it, you can go onto Church Space and search just like you would for Airbnb for a place to stay for vacation and use it as a space for your event. So they've been able to really help churches, especially during COVID, when a lot of them went online and were shut down. And from a financial standpoint, we're struggling. They've been really able to kind of help church owners be able to find another way to kind of monetize during those downtimes. So I think Church Space is super interesting. I know that there is a startup that's part of your community as well, that's doing some really interesting things with the ability for sellers. So Rush Roto is doing something really interesting for those that are independent sellers. When we think about sellers, we think about Amazon. Folks that are selling on Amazon, they need to be able to do a picture really quickly. So Rush Roto has developed technology that allows them to be able to take a picture really quickly and load it. So yeah, I mean, there's so many of them, and then we have some startups that are building in the security space, which is something that we take a lot of pride in at AWS with being secure. So a startup called SciDeploy, Black woman-led startup who's actually in Vegas with us for reInvent this week and is speaking. And so she did a full migration. She's loading a ton of AWS services. And I would say SciDeploy is doing something really interesting in a security B2B enterprise space as well. And then I would probably say Hubble IQ. They received a ton of funding right after the Impact Accelerator, and they're also with us at AWS reInvent in Vegas as well. And they're really focusing on the future of work, right? And so that is drastically changing every day. We see layoffs happening. We see this potential recession happening. We're still in this pandemic phase where folks are working from home. And so Hubble IQ is doing something really interesting in that space as well, too. So yeah, it's hard to pick and choose, but those are some of the interesting different ones, I would say.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. I mean, I first heard about the the church space this earlier this year, actually, ironically, with the people who were on before you, just before you. So the Harvard Business School African American Student Union Black New Venture Pitch Competition. So met them there, and again, this is I think a great example of what it means to create like an efficient kind of ecosystem. They go from there, they go to your program and stuff like that. Yeah, no, I love it. I love to hear. So I love to hear all those stories. I hadn't heard of actually most of those companies, so that's good stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's really what I'm most excited about, right? These are individuals that are building something different and building in spaces that are already hot markets, but they're being overlooked, right? And so that was really kind of how we thought about making our selections. Through the application process, we received thousands of applications, and picking out 25 per cohort has been extremely, extremely tough. But it's one of those things where we really wanted to shine a light and amplify voices that we know we're building amazing tech startups, but they haven't been able to kind of get that next step to be able to kind of get in articles or be in press announcements for you and others to hear about. And, what I thought was really interesting that we learned, like we knew, but we didn't really know for sure. Working at Amazon is such a privilege because, we're one of those, large companies where if I call someone, they're going to answer the phone. And I've worked at companies in my career where that wasn't always the case. And so, when we were able to select our 25 and put out the announcement, all of those startups received phone calls from investors and from media that, they've been trying to get meetings with for a while, and they hadn't been able to. And so, for me, it's such a level of responsibility that I feel I have working at this company to be able to use that privilege and shine a light on startups that are often overlooked, often counted out, never get a chance to get that call back. And so it's been, for me personally, very rewarding being able to do that.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I mean, I know you all see your experience, obviously in business and stuff like that, and in all the applications and stuff, and even working with the founders now. I mean, are there what are some of the, if you had to give any advice to founders, what would it be? Just, I mean, that could go in a number of different ways. Maybe the first thing that kind of pops to your head. What are some of the things that you see that it makes for good founders and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I use myself as, an example. I was a former startup founder, and non-technical. And so I would say it's possible, right? If for me, building a startup that started out more as education conferences, but then it started to pivot into more of a SaaS platform, right? I had no idea how to build something like that. My background is marketing and business, certainly not, technology to be a developer and to code something. But I would say putting yourself in the right places to meet those types of individuals, from co-working spaces, like I mentioned, our startup lofts, or other spaces like WeWorks, et cetera, and being able to network to find a community that can kind of help and move you to the next level. I would say for me personally, that was the key for me. But I would say, what we see in those that make it are startups that are really understanding and defining a challenge. And they've been able to build something that's solving a really big issue in a really differentiated way, I would say. So figuring out what the problem is and really tooling it to a point of you're separating it from other places or businesses that have tried to solve that problem, and you have a personal connection to it. I think those that have a personal connection and can tell that story to investors oftentimes have a longer journey, and they'll be able to tell that story in a really different way. So from my perspective, I would say those are probably some of the two or three things to kind of take away.
Nice. Okay. So, can you talk a little bit more about the upcoming? We got about 5 more minutes left. Can you talk a little bit more about the kind of the upcoming accelerator for Latino founders?
Yeah. So for Latino founders, we'll launch in January. And very similar to Black founders and women founders, we're looking for 25 Latino led startups. We're looking for technology driven startups. I think for this cohort, we've had some discussions about opening up to right now. It is a US based program, but we're certainly open to opening up to startups that maybe be based in the US, but they actually live in Brazil or Mexico or somewhere in LATAM. So we're open to those types of startups. So I would definitely say, happy to share with you, of course, Joey, when we have the link and everything ready for those to apply. But anyone can reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. Happy to answer any additional questions related to it. But yeah, we're looking for 25 led strong Latino founders.
Cool. Okay. So, I mean, kind of in closing, I mean, anything else you want to kind of add? How can people get in contact? And you provided some few links already, but any other links you want to drop or get in contact with, you or your team or anything like that?
Yeah, of course. So I'm pulling up the link now, but I will drop in the link. We have a number of accelerator programs, and I will just drop this here. Um, Here we go. So hopefully folks can see that, but we have a number of accelerator programs beyond Impact Accelerator. So on the Alexa team, there's Black Founders Build with Alexa. We have an ed tech startup accelerator. We have cloud. We have sustainability. We have GovTech. So all the accelerators that you can probably think of from a segment perspective, we have. And so there's a ton of information on all of these sites. I'm, of course, happy to introduce founders to folks that are leading these programs or programs that I'm leading. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. And I'm happy to share my email address too. So yeah.
Cool. To be honest, this live stream is all gonna be. You can drop the email if you want to. I just want to let you know, just a quick.
Okay, LinkedIn
Okay.
works perfectly then.
LinkedIn, there it is. Well, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. So listen, at Goodie Nation, we talk about being intentionally good, and Denise just not only talked about the upcoming accelerator for Latino founders, but several other type of accelerators as well. Within the kind of the Amazon ecosystem, GovTech and cloud and all kind of other stuff. So if you're watching out there, if you're a founder, I highly encourage you all to go ahead and apply if you fit within the criteria. More importantly, I'm pretty sure that you know somebody who can benefit. And so when we say, being intentionally good, what that tactically means is sharing this information with people in your network. That's how we move forward as a community. That's how we bring more support for diverse founders. That's how we're more efficient and create the change that we seek. So, Denise, I don't know if there's anything else we want to kind of say in conclusion, but this has been amazing.
Yeah, no, I would just say I love that you're ending on that note. And, I shared the link to the 25 startups for Black founders and women founders. And I would love for everyone to just check out those startups. This is an opportunity for them to get some additional exposure as well too, and introduce what they're building to you, and vice versa. I also know that some of the startups that got accepted into Women Founders, they were super proactive, where they reached out to some of the Black founders that got accepted and was like, hey, how did you get in? Can you help me with my pitch deck? And so I would say that, that's what we see, and that's what we're looking for in these really early stage startups, and that, it's not about competition. And that's what's so different about our program, is that it is very about celebration and startups that are building and working together. And so on a Giving Tuesday type of event, I would definitely encourage those to remember to look back and to help and support each other, and then take a look at the 50 startups that are trying to get to the next stage, and see what they're building.
There it is. There it is. Well, good stuff. We truly appreciate you for the work that you and your team is doing. What I'll say is, behind the scenes, there are people like Denise that are doing their thing to make sure diverse founders get opportunity, and they don't get the. I'm not saying it could be work with AWS. I'm just saying that just in general, they don't get the praise that they need. Quite honestly, I'm not going to say this about Denise or her team. But what I'm saying, working with many companies over the years, is they're putting, in many cases, their careers on the line. They fight for opportunities, and with these conversations on Twitter and these other, and in conferences and stuff like that, sometimes these large companies get bashed. But at the end of the day, we must remember these are individual humans that are doing their thing and again, pushing back, so on and so forth, and creating more opportunity for founders. So, Denise, thank you for your hard work, and that of your team as well. Truly appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Joey.
Cool.
Thanks for having me.
See you later.